This is the CineSnob Podcast.
I think we got the same Apple fan watch.
Oh yeah, I love the blue.
Yeah.
Is it the 7?
Yeah. Is that the newest one?
Yeah. I got it for my birthday last year.
I got it for my birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What happened?
Is it expensive? Like, I don't know. Is it like an...
I don't know. My wife got it for me.
Okay.
I mean, it came from our money, but.
You know what's funny is I have a blue one too. I didn't wear it today, but I have the same color.
Well, what is the 7 supposed to be like the best, newest one or something?
Yeah, it is the newest. Well, I had the 5 or something, but we went to a spa for our anniversary, and like as I was wrapping up, I'm all relaxed. As I'm wrapping up, my watch falls out of the locker and shatters on the ground. I was like, "Fuck!" Just undid this massage.
Oh yeah, it's like
I'm all relaxed and god damn it. Hello, welcome to another bonus episode of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafania.
And we are here once again with our good friend Greg Sestero. Greg.
Is this the trilogy?
This is probably the third. No, well, yeah.
On this show, probably.
On this show, probably the third time we've talked to you.
Yeah.
Because we did one with the first time we met you with The Room.
Yes.
Then we did
in San Antonio.
In San Antonio, yeah. The old Draft House that's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it's another theater. And then we did Austin.
We did, right after the Disaster Artist screenings.
Yeah, and I believe you screened Best Friends.
Yeah, it was a super early screening. The movie wasn't even done yet.
Yeah,
and we just showed it.
And now here we are for your latest film, Miracle Valley, which
you were one of the very early first maybe 5 people to see the rough cut.
Yeah, you were sending me versions of it as it was getting edited, and I was like, had the line, the chyrons for insert ADR here and all the work print, I guess.
Yeah,
you would call it. And now you're finally screening it tonight. You're screening The Room.
Yeah.
But like 2 weeks ago, we met up in Austin when you were screening Miracle Valley. So just tell us a little bit about the film for people that don't know what it is at this point. Like, what is Miracle Valley?
So I survived The Room, wrote The Disaster Artist, and kind of took on that whole experience. And then I was like, okay, I love movies. I got into this because I want to make movies. So why don't I start with that? And we ended up making Best Friends, which we showed. And then once I got a taste of movie making that didn't involve the craziness of like a Wiseau set, I was like, I'm really inspired by these new horror movies. People love them. People of all ages love to go see them. I remember I saw the movie called The Strangers back in like 2007 with my girlfriend at the time. And it was packed with young people screaming. The energy in there was great. And I just think you can combine a lot of elements when it comes to horror. So I got this idea that I had been, traveling and working really hard. And I was like, I'm going to take some time off and go, where am I going to go live? I'm going to go live in the middle of nowhere, write a script in this town that I choose, and then make the movie there. And so randomly, as I start putting out the idea that I want to make a horror film, I get a message from this man who lives in the middle of nowhere, who's like, hey, I know you want to make movies, you want to make a horror movie, I have a perfect set for you. Now, any logic would be like, don't respond to like this super random message. But I was like, sure, why not? And so anyway, I got these photos of this location where they used to shoot old Westerns down in southern Arizona. I was like, you know what? This house looks incredible. It's available. What a great chance to kind of get away from everything and just go down there and just start writing and get into that. So I packed up all my stuff from LA and drove all the way down there. And I get there, it's like 7 hours, the border of Mexico. Pull up into the house. The dude is there. He's showing me around. He's like, come have dinner. Then the next day, I'm trying to kind of settle in. He's up at my house hanging out. And I was like, okay. And then the next day, he's up there. And I was like, okay, what am I doing here? I was trying to, you try to get a feel for a place when you move somewhere. And then I found out there's no Wi-Fi in the house. So I can't really write. I can't really do anything. Now it defeats the whole purpose. I have to drive, find a coffee shop miles away. So I thought for a moment, should I just drive out of there and just just change, maybe this is just a stupid mistake. So I said, no, I'm gonna take a moment. I'm just gonna go for a drive out into the nature and just feel it out, see what happens. So I drive out into the middle of nowhere and drive all down these valleys, these beautiful sunsets, and I see this huge church there. And so I pull up to it, no trespassing, go down this long road, pull up to it, and I'm like walking up, and there's wind and flies, and you think maybe this isn't the best idea. So these two guys come out of the trailer, and they walk up to me, and they're like, this is no trespassing. Who are you? What are you doing here? And I just asked questions about the church. And they said it was a cult in the 60s where this preacher, he made the whole town believe that he could bring people back from the dead based on their blood type. I mean, so I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, different types of blood types mixed together can change anatomy. And I'm like, okay, and what happened with this? And they said like the cops had a whole war against them and things got taken down.
Typical cult, typical final story for a cult, right? Get taken down by the cops.
Yeah, and so I just the more I asked about it, the more it made no sense. And then they're like, "Hey, this cult's gonna come back stronger than ever. Do you want to join?" And so I was like, I immediately got this inspiration because I've always been fascinated by cults. So I was like, okay, this is what I needed. This is why I moved down here for weird shit like this. So I went back to the house, started researching, found out more about this place, and it kind of jump-started me writing this horror movie about a real-life cult. And one thing I did when I moved down is I brought all my favorite horror Blu-rays. So I watched a little bit of like Psycho. I watched every day I'd study each movie and kind of try to feel out what I liked about it and put it in this movie. So a few months later, we ended up making Miracle Valley just as the pandemic was happening. And in fact, when I spoke to you guys, we were editing Miracle Valley during the pandemic.
Yeah, you were there in Arizona.
In the house that we made it in. So I'm like watching these scenes, in there. So it's sort of, some of the movies I studied were like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes, John Carpenter, like Halloween, kind of tying in a fun score, crazy villain, stuff that's just fun and short. I didn't want to go into a whole 2-hour, horror movie. I wanted to make something that was quick and fun to watch with a crowd.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So by the time you had stumbled upon this stuff, you didn't have an idea of what kind of movie you were going to make at that point?
No, I'd gotten a private tour of Falling Water, the Frank Lloyd Wright house. Mm-hmm. And I just knew like that was something that'd be so cool to work into a movie. So I knew I had that because they said they let me film a day there. So I knew it wanted to be something in the world of cults. But that church and that whole experience is what really brought that out.
Wow.
Now this is your directorial debut. Correct. So what drew you into actually just buckling down and directing it?
It sort of just happened. When I was writing this script, I didn't even know if I was going to be in it. I kind of just pictured this couple. The more I got into it, and the more I researched locations and went up to Lake Powell, which was incredible. I just fell in love with all these locations, and I'd spent so much time in writing these scenes. I'd sit in the house at night, instead of relaxing watching TV, I just kind of studied the way the light would hit the window. I'm like, this is where the person's going to get killed. This is a great shot for this. So I had memorized the scenes in my mind living there, that it just made sense. Working with this DP that I had met up with a few times, Matt Holla, he shoots Ari and he shoots handheld. So it was a perfect fit for this. We sat there and just kind of went through everything. And I was like, we have this figured out. If I'm going to direct a movie, it may as well be this one because I lived the story in that environment before I wrote it, so it came second nature.
So this guy shoots on Ari, and so he doesn't own his own camera, or he does.
No, we have to rent everything.
Not like Tom.
Very unwise. Oh,
yeah. I just made that connection right now.
But here's the thing that kind of made sense. So like equipment packages are expensive. They're a pain because every little thing that happens, you got to cover this, and you're always stressed out. So I kind of get buying your equipment in a sense if you're going to be making productions nonstop.
Yeah.
Then it's like, hey, we're shooting another one next month and we're shooting here. So it's like, I don't have to deal with any of the rental places, but not if you're just going to like shoot a movie and just sit on it, then it makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, if you're shooting, I do video production now, and, our videographer has a $30,000 camera, which isn't feasible for, a low budget production.
Yeah.
And you hire the guy that has a $30,000. That's funny to me. I would have thought that he would have had his own gear.
It's always, I mean, obviously it's always convenient when someone has their own stuff because then it's a one-stop thing. You just go in.
So what did you have to do? Was there a place to rent gear in Arizona?
There was a place. There's a great production company down there, Monsoon Productions, that we had. Honestly, the crew we had was incredible. They were making Ant-Man in New Orleans.
Oh.
So our crew was amazing. We had a full crew, gaffers. It was like, yeah, we was.
Oh, so this was not like this wasn't like well. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but like it's not like a low budget like you would think. Like it's just a guy with a camera. You had a full crew.
Yeah, no, we had we had a full trucks and all that. And now here's the thing that's crazy. So it was the first time I really got to work with like a full crew and just light the set, tell them what you want, it's done.
Yeah.
It was amazing, but the ranch guy all of a sudden decides 2 weeks before we're about to film, wait, you're filming here? Oh, I didn't know about that. And I'm just going like, wait, what? Why the fuck do you think I moved to the middle of nowhere? Oh, I just thought you were trying to get away. So it all of a sudden became a horror movie within a horror movie. This guy's like, wait, filming, people are driving up here. Who are these people? What are they doing here? You're filming. Like, it became a total shit show. Now these people are like, because the grip truck would come up and then like the lighting person and the sound guy, and it was insane. It was one of those things where like as we're making it, we're going like, can we survive like this whole thing?
That is really interesting. I would have never guessed. And I guess being outside of Hollywood, that's why I think like, oh, this was just a couple of guys that got together. And I don't mean that in a quality thing for sure. Because no,
that's just what I mean. That's kind of a normal process of like, yeah, you're gonna keep it tight and very like, guerrilla style, just show up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah, no, but it's a lot more work to do it this way because now when you shoot on an RE, you got to light for an RE, you got to have a first AC. You can't just have the DP. You got to have somebody doing all the camera stuff. We had a full monitor, pulling focus. We had a whole monitor, a whole set that people could sit around. We had, first AD. So we had a full-on crew, and then it's just like then you figure finally have all that help, and then you got to deal with that garbage. So it's like you just can't, you can't win.
So you've been on sets, obviously, that are like that. Was this something that you'd want to do again that way, directing?
I think, honestly, the key with directing that I learned is casting. If you have the right cast, it is a blast. Like when we had Rick playing Father Jake, I just got to sit there and be like, enjoy it, and then go up and say, hey, do it this way, try this, go a little bit more. It's so much fun when you have the right cast. Directing is a huge challenge if the actor is just not cast properly and they can't get there. And so one of the things I did with directing is I noticed the scene was moving. It was okay, they were doing it, and then I thought, okay, we got to spice this up. So I'd pull one actor aside and I'd be like, do not do the scene the same way this time. You're gonna challenge him, and you're just gonna throw something at him, and we're gonna play it totally differently. And the other actor had no idea. So Rick came in, and I said, just look at him and just tell him you're a fucking asshole, and just don't stop saying it. And so she just went up, and the reaction you got on Rick's face was just exactly what you needed that you would have never gotten doing it anywhere else. So she kept saying you're a fucking asshole, and then Rick's like, yeah, I guess I am. And so we did that a few times, and then I noticed in some of the scenes, actors are just they're not really aware of what's going on. They're just doing their lines. And there's a scene where there's this valuable blood that's right there that nobody's protecting, and if that means something, why the hell is it being protected? So I told one of the actors to go up and just break it and let the other actors stop you from doing it. And then that's the stuff we ended up using. So I noticed when things got a little predictable, I'd play with that, and that's something that I felt like just being on different kind of sets made it fun for everybody, because then everyone was on their toes. They didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. So what is that like in reference to your own performance? So as you mentioned, you're in the movie and a lot of the movie. So what is it like to be a first-time director, but also directing your own performance and figuring out how that fits into everything?
That was one of the things that I really enjoyed. I gave no real prep or thought to the acting part on my end, because I lived with the story for so long that I was thinking about everything else but acting. So we did a test screening, and everyone was like, yeah, you were solid. And I was like, I just played myself. I literally did not even think about any choices. I just played the story. And that actually was a lot more fun kind of not having somebody tell you what to do or having to like please somebody, like, is that right? Is that the right tone? You just knew what the story was, and you knew how you could tell it to advance the story. And that's a lot of times with actors, they get caught up in like, ooh, I got to perform and I got to do this, and you think mostly about like you versus the best part, the betterment of the movie. So for the acting in this movie, I just showed up and was like, I'm just gonna play myself.
You talked about Rick. That's of course Rick Edwards, who was also in Best Friends.
Yeah. You remember you had no idea when you went to go see Volume 2, and you're like, holy
I was
shit.
like, who the fuck is this guy? This guy rules. You've told this story at screenings, but he's an old soap actor that you met.
Yeah.
I remember also you told me, and I looked it up. He did like some like Conan style movie.
He did.
Hearts
and Armor.
Hearts and Armor. Yeah, and it's like an Italian ripoff of Conan, or Conan, true. I should say. And I looked up the movie poster once, and it's just it's him just beefcaked out.
Yeah.
Did you have that part in mind for him immediately?
Yeah. When we made Best Friends, he was so much fun to work with, and people responded well to him. That I thought, hey, it would be great for us to dial in and just do a movie together and have that prep time. Because when we made Best Friends, we just showed up in Arizona, and I hadn't seen him in years. He just came on and started reading lines, and I was like, this is so much fun. So with Miracle Valley, I wrote the part for him, and we got to tweak it and talk about it. And, Rick Edwards playing a biker priest is something that is a lot of fun. So he got really into it. He's a biker, so we had his bikes, we had his Bronco, and
you mentioned that was his car. That's a great car, that Bronco.
Yeah, I did. So one of the funny things is my character, who plays a photographer, is kind of a dipshit, but he was supposed to be driving this orange VW Bug that the ranch guy had, because I thought that'd be kind of a good fit. And then he decides he doesn't want us to use it the day of. And I'm like, oh my God. So I was like, screw it, Bronco. Let's do it. And which was a blessing, because Bronco had so much more space to film out of.
Yeah, it looks great.
But then I had to learn how to like drive this huge ass car, which I didn't. I had to pull it up like on the spot to the gas station. So made it a little bit more of a challenge. But I love that Bronco. But yeah, Rick is just so much fun to work with. So when you got him as your lead villain, and he's carrying it, I mean, it really gives a boost to your movie for everybody too when we're doing scenes, because he, brings so much intensity and so much fun that it's infectious when you're making the movie.
Yeah.
So what was the process like of like breaking the specific story that you see here? Because obviously, when you're thrown the idea of the cult with the blood types and all that stuff, you're like, I'm sure your mind was going 1,000 miles an hour trying to figure out how to hone that into a story. What was it like to edit it down into the story that you wanted to tell?
Yeah, luckily I tweaked the script quite a bit. The script was pretty short. We had an editor who cut it. The first round was he is an older editor. He'd done A Simple Plan, Don't Breathe, a lot of movies that I really loved.
Yeah.
So he did the first cut, and I sat in with him on a few things, and it was close, but I just felt like there was an edge that was missing. And we got hooked up with another editor who had worked with Mike Flanagan on Oculus.
Mm-hmm.
And he had done a few other shows, and I guess we had met years ago at a gas station in LA, and I had the roommovie.com on my car. And so he'd asked what it was. It's like 2006 or something. So I was like, you're hired. And he sent the first 18 minutes during the pandemic. So he had the footage, he worked on it, edited it. Sent the first 18 minutes, the movie was entirely different. Everybody looked better, used better takes, better cuts. Rick had this moment where he weaved in and out of traffic, and it looked really crazy. That wasn't. And so, different movie. So he went through and polished the whole movie down and just cut out a lot of stuff. And the goal was really to have it move and have each act be as tight as possible. And that's really what he came in and did, which was really helpful. So when we got to sit during the pandemic, it was fun because that you had something to look forward to. He was going to send you a chunk every week, and you'd have that to watch, and then you'd like sit with it and give notes, and then you're ready for the next one. And so it was a chance to really take your time with also the ADR and where to fill in sound effects here and there. Mm-hmm. And then it came down to the score. So I was friends with the guy who did the score for It Follows, disaster piece. He did It Follows, Under the Silver Lake.
Uh-huh.
And I sent him the movie to watch. But I'd say same batch as I sent. It's the first 5 I sent him. And he had some really good ideas for music and tones of what you want to do, what you want to try to do. And he said one of the things he liked about the movie is that it had like a cult classic kind of feel to it. So he's like leaning into that for music. So the next step was then finding someone during this time to do the music as well.
Now you talked about this during a screening, but I'll bring it up here. You said like you finished filming, and then the pandemic hit, right? Or was it right as...
It was right as we were starting to get into like the rough cut, like the editing.
Okay. So you also mentioned that because of the pandemic, you weren't necessarily able to go back
Yes.
and kind of do any reshoots.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel as the director? Do you feel like you've kind of abandoned it? Or do you feel like maybe you're okay? Are you okay with it?
So a lot of times we overshoot. Like we think the scene just doesn't work, or we really need this, or really need that. And I noticed there was a line of things that I thought we needed, we really didn't need. It was just, you feel like you need them, but as you release and you move on from the movie, you realize none of that stuff's really that important. Like we needed like a insert of a knife cutting or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, honestly, people get it. Like let your audience kind of figure it out. So we just tweaked with editing and sound and making sure that some of the scenes, the reactions were paused properly. But it was sort of a blessing we didn't go back and reshoot. We had some amazing drone footage of Lake Powell and these other locations, Horseshoe Bend, that we used, which really helped fill in. And then I was in Sedona randomly during the pandemic, and I got a shot for B-roll for like the zooming in on the camera. So I was like still filming on my phone, like just finding little things that we needed.
Yeah.
Sound effects and stuff.
How involved were you in the edit process? I know you were basically living with the editor, right, for a little while? Or y'all not necessarily living with, but y'all were in the same building.
Yeah, so the first editor, he had a studio in Hollywood. So I'd visit him once in a while. And then the other editor, I was in Arizona and he was just in his spot, so he was editing, and sending me links.
So like, I do tons of editing, and I think there's a weird joy in that, like you mentioned, of like finding the cut, like finding the thing you found in the, like you said, like we couldn't go back and shoot this, or we didn't need to, but we made it work with this. Is that something that you like? Would you take a more hands-on approach to editing future stuff?
I did notice in this movie, it is important to sit and watch all the footage. I think that is important, because what I started noticing, I gave the editor the space to do his thing, the first editor. Then I started sitting in and seeing these beautiful shots like we were falling water, and all this beautiful drone shot at night coming up over the house. I'm like, that's the end shot of the movie. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he would have never noticed that. So the more I sat in there and the more I felt and saw takes to cut back to, I think it's, you want to give it a little bit of a leash, but you also want to be very clear on the vision that you have, that makes sure that you're not missing out on stuff there that could really help. So I think it's really important to sit there and watch all the footage, get some notes, get a feeling, let the editor see the story and try their thing. But I think definitely getting a head start on the material yourself is important.
I have a question. Just this is a kind of like a random horror question, because I've always been kind of curious about this. So, without spoiling anything in the movie, there's some blood in the movie. There's some some stuff that happens inside of it. And so like are those like very specific decisions that you make about like how those things play out, or like amount of blood, or what's gratuitous and too much, what's like the right amount of gore, and like what you want to go with? Like what is that process like, figuring out those pieces?
Yeah, we did practical effects, because I always think that's more fun than CGI. It's a lot more work though, because if you mess up that cut, that's the take that you have. So we worked with a guy who had done a lot of effects for different movies like Hancock and a bunch of other stuff, and he had this amazing studio in Tucson that we went into, like cadavers, corpses. You could do all these casts, and so he had a really great layout, and we're like, let's just select the number of kills that we're going to do and have it be unique and fun and catchy. And so we brought Rick in there for a few things to look at. And one of I won't spoil it, but he came up with a kill idea that I was just like, we all looked we all looked at each other like, oh my God. And some people didn't really know Rick, so they're like, who is this guy?
Is that one that you talked about near the end of the movie?
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was just like, okay, and people like they lose it, like that's their favorite part of the movie, and it wasn't even like planned. So
it is very bonkers.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. I think
it comes up. Yeah, everyone was like, wait, yeah. So I think we were just going for the right mix of using gore, not too much, having it just pop in the way that keeps you on the edge.
Yeah.
What was the hardest thing to leave out? Like, was there something that you shot that just wasn't working that you decided to leave out?
I think for this, it was really clear when it wasn't working. And I think it was really easy to cut ahead and just be like, this is not helping. If it's not working, just cut through. I learned with best friends, like we had a lot of fun making it. And, the second part to me was a lot of fun with the Rick stuff. But like, I think very easily you could go through and just take that down to one film, and it's just because we had so much fun shooting these different parts of the story. So with this, it's like, if it's not working, let's just move forward and cut ahead. And so we paid a lot of attention to that.
Is that of like looking back and like saying it could be cut to one? Is that something like an opinion that you formed after directing a movie and like going through the process of like closely watching the edits and like?
Yeah, I think you also got to look at like script. So it's usually like a page a minute, and there's no real rules for anything. I think you just got to feel what's working. Yeah. But like Miracle Valley, the script was like 90 pages, it was not 80 minute movie. Yeah. So I think you just got to think of what's being said on screen to what you really need to show. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of times we have like dates or a conversation you could easily skip ahead and know what happened. Or so with this movie, with it being horror and with it being like my first time doing it, I really wanted to make sure it was tight, make sure it moved.
Did you shoot in order, or did you have to jump around a lot with the crew?
Yeah, we started all over the place. Yeah, it was just like when people could come in. In fact, the guy who plays my best friend, he's an actor from Missoula, Montana. Or in fact, he's not even an actor. He studied acting years ago, but he lives in Missoula. And he came to a show and he read a scene on stage as Peter, and I was like, this guy's cracking. He kind of had like a Ivy League Seth Rogen kind of vibe to him, as he was like just reading dialogue, and he just seemed like, I don't know, something about him that just clicked. And I was like, hey, I'm making a movie soon. He seemed like he'd be really good for this part. He sent me a really professional audition tape.
Well, that's awesome.
And he was just smart, and his dialogue choices were good. He gave good notes, and we worked on these scenes. It was just like, it was really natural. He got along really well with everybody. And just things like that to me make it fun with movies, because you get so caught up in like the business part and the managers and the agents. And it's just cool that people, a few people come down that just wanted to be there because they love movies.
That's a really cool detail. I had no idea that you just kind of met this dude and
he came up. He read Peter, and he was like making me laugh. And
that's awesome.
I couldn't find a character to play that part. I think we had talked to Jack Quaid, who I guess dressed up as Mark for Halloween. He's a really nice guy. People are filming here. They're out of town. They're gone. It's always, I'd met John Carroll Lynch at that Horror Hound convention where I met Kate Siegel. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, I loved your boy. I love to work with you. I'm gone. So it was just trying to find somebody who could play the friend that was likable enough to carry through and not be distracting. And I thought this guy just had like a intelligent charm to him, and I was like, hey, why not take a risk and do something?
That's really cool. How did the rest of the casting process go?
So Rick again was a friend. The two twin girls, I'd known them from years before. They're Broadway singers, and they just showed up and were like maniacal. I didn't have to do anything. I was just like, go. And they were great. One of the other actors who plays Erica, I'd met her in Owensboro, Kentucky. She's an aspiring actor. I was living in Atlanta, and I was like, hey, you know what? It's just, I've known these people for a while. I know, like, the trials and tribulations of trying to be an actor. A lot of times we're never given a shot at all, or we're put in something that doesn't fit us. So I was like, let's try to give people a chance here. And
That's a really great way to approach that. I never thought of that. Like, you as an actor clearly know a lot of actors and the people that you just kind of met along the way.
Yeah. I think it's, we all have something to offer, especially in a part. As I'm writing a script, it's like, hey, she could really shine in this if you give her a chance, Yeah. And so I always think it's fun to do stuff, not always follow the pack and follow the casting directors and all that. It's like, if you feel something you can pull it off, take a risk and do something different.
Did you do any sort of like writing on the fly or rewriting like as you were shooting?
Yeah, the ending we had to switch up a little bit because we didn't have the stunt stuff. We had the time to pull that off. We ran out a little bit of time on a few things. So yeah, the ending we switched up. A few things we condensed. We'd sit there and like Rick would come up with some ideas and James Franco's other brother Tom worked on it as well, and we'd all kind of sit and say, what's the smartest way to do this scene? Mm-hmm. Do we really need this? Can we try it a different way? So I do think prep is always really important. The more you can never have enough prep, but at the same time you got to go out and make the movie. I know Matt, the DP, was like, hey, let's maybe push this to spring 2020 and really take our time. And I'm like, who knows what could happen in the next few months? I swear that's what I said. Let's just go make it and we'll figure it out.
Do you have anything that I know I kind of asked you this, like you kind of had to abandon it, so to speak. Is there anything big that you regret not doing or not getting or whatever? I
really wish we could have shot a few more options and a few things here and there, tried a scene a couple different ways. Would it make the movie like hugely better? I think the soul of the movie just exists. When you make the movie, it's there and it is what it is. You can tweak a few things here. But I think, I think it would, shooting out the original ending and shooting out a few other ideas would have been fun. Just to see how they would play and how they would test and would people leave with a bigger response. And, I think the latter half, like toward the very, very end, is there some things I would have loved to have tried. But it's really tough, getting all the pieces together and getting a movie made that, you just have to learn as much as you can and then try to improve on your next film.
Did you write with that in mind, the idea of what would be hard to make?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing to think about when you're writing stuff. It's like, always, stay honest to the story. And if a scene feels bigger, just do it. And then always have in the back of your mind, we really don't need any of that. Mm-hmm. We really don't need to go from here and then have them also be here, have them just stay right there and have all the action take place. So I've learned that specifically. But, some of the stunt stuff we could have done, but it just would have been like 3 extra days. And when you're already in 20-something days, you got to think about all that. And, if you shoot all of it and you don't even use it, it's a big waste. So
you've been touring this movie for how long now?
So we did some like surprise pop-up screenings last fall, some film festivals, and then this fall, like Halloween is when we really want to try actually release it, more theaters, streaming, Blu-ray. So up until like November, and then I'm supposed to do a tour in Lithuania, Estonia. We're going to do screenings over there. We did a big Russian film festival last year.
Probably not this year.
I think we're going to the Ukraine this year. No, I think, so just getting it out there, and then I think this fall hopefully will be a more normal time for it. But I really think it's a movie that, and this is what I really was hoping to create, that friends can sit around on a couch, grab beers, and like interact with it. And there's this group of people that did a watch party thing in Cincinnati. They were like 14-year-olds, and they started yelling stuff and quoting things and asking questions, and it was absolutely hilarious, the stuff they come up with. So that's really the hope, is people get to have a good time with it, and it just sticks in that slot of horror movies you want to watch with friends.
Are there like surprise laugh lines to you that you've seen at screenings and things you didn't expect people to kind of react to? Yeah,
definitely. And it's to me, I embrace that. Like I think it's sometimes with The Room, Tommy's like, oh my God, it's intentional. Right. It's good. But for me, it's like, oh damn, I didn't see that. That's hilarious. Like they'll laugh out loud at certain things, and I think it's great.
So what has been the process of getting it released? You talked about streaming option earlier. and you talked about like the Blu-ray. So when do you kind of walk away from the touring part of it?
So I think once it's streaming in the Blu-ray, I think through the Halloween season is the time that then I think that's really why I wanted to make horror movies, is because then you get to enjoy the fall and the Halloween season, which is my favorite. So I think giving it a proper Halloween time release where it has its time, then I think that's a there's something to be said about like discovering a horror movie. And I think that's one of the things that obviously people miss about video stores, is just kind of being able to walk in there and like pick something off the shelf. 100%. That's what I'm hoping that people get a chance to come across this and have it be kind of a throwback to the movies that we used to love watching.
Yeah, just whatever wacky VHS you could find.
Totally.
You just got back from Boston doing a convention.
Yeah.
Is that your biggest convention?
Yeah, it was Fan Expo Boston. Ewan McGregor was there, all the Cobra Kai guys, Chris Sarandon. It was just, it was cool sitting back, hanging out with all those guys in the green room and just like, those people you watched growing up. And I haven't done many, but, I was fortunate to do Fan Expo, and it was pretty cool.
A lot of people, I assume, quoting the room to you.
Yeah. All walks of like growing up, and just really,
Did you do any panels while you were there?
I was only there for one day.
Okay.
I didn't realize what it was, and then by the time they're like, "We'd love to have you stay for Saturday," it was like too late because they had David Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
I was using his booth first day, they tried to have me stay for another day. But,
I've done a lot of hosting for those. Here in Austin, and they're so much fun. And I think one of the biggest things, and I see it where people waiting in line to meet you and grab some merch or whatever. Just the kind of devotion that people have to these things.
It's really good. That's what keeps everything going. And I know for myself, it's weird as you get older, you don't really have that as much. I was trying to think of what's something I'd love to go out and do. Like, it used to be sports, and it used to be like I'd be obsessed and just so excited, and it's just great that people still come out and do that. What's
the next thing you've got lined up? I know you've talked a little bit about maybe a UFO movie, something like that.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm writing that, and I've already scouted. I've got people ready to go in Texas that were El Paso area.
Mm-hmm.
Filmed near New Mexico. I got like Rick's gonna be in it. I got all that ready to go. I'm tweaking the script right now and hoping to make that next year. So I've been kind of diving into the whole UFO genre.
And you're gonna do the same thing. I mean, this model, you seem to like it a lot. This idea where you kind of tour with the movie and then kind of set it free.
Yeah, I think it was tough to say with the pandemic how all that was gonna come down, but there's nothing like getting people to see a movie in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a way of it's almost like you're sitting around with a group of people watching a movie and talking about it, and I think that's something that gets lost nowadays. So I think if you're able to do that, I think it's really cool. And sometimes, or some movies are just meant to just go straight out into streaming. Like I did that movie Infrared, did it for a day or something like that, and now it's out on Tubi and streaming. So not every movie is going to be something that you put out and tour all that. But if it's something that you put time in, you think it works with a crowd, it's always fun to do that. So, the UFO movie, we'll see how that goes. But I think it could be very well something like that where you do some advanced screenings and then release it.
Anything in the works with Tommy? Everybody, I'm sure, always asks. He still keeps talking about that big shark movie.
Yeah. I wish that it was a lot easier to work. Yeah, because if it was just fun, we could. Endless stuff we could do. Just have a good time and do it. But if that was the case, then the room wouldn't be what it is. So, but the shark teaser was like 3.5 years ago.
Yeah. People keep thinking.
They keep saying, "When's it coming out?" I'm like, "That's it."
Yeah, you saw it. I mean, at least that. I mean, there's worse things than to have people being excited about a movie that doesn't exist.
I mean, isn't that funny? When that was coming out, everyone was covering and going nuts for it, and I'm like, no, don't run it, don't run it. You like tried to stop it, and then they're like, dude, that's what you want. You want people to get upset, but you're gonna make that movie, and the people are gonna be like.
It's going to be like Snakes on a Plane.
Yeah, it's going to be something that I just don't think was going to hold after 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You can be like, okay, the joke's done. Like, okay, so.
Well, you did that the Joker and Batman stuff that had a great life. When was that?
That was like it was when Best Friends was coming out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still see those pictures pop up every now and then.
Yeah, that was fun. Again, that was run by the guys who worked at Legendary, so that was a cool, really cool thing to work on. And again, like when we do something together, it's something that it's impactful, and I just wish it was something that could lean both ways and be fun to make and have, that's why Best Friends was such a challenge, because it was just trying to do something totally different. But I mean, at the end of the day, you make movies for the people that want to watch them. So if that's what you give them what they want, for me, the shark thing is something we really would be good enough to like hold people's attention for 90 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else, Cody? You wanna?
No, I mean, one thing that I was thinking about, because you're still obviously touring the room and playing that. Do you find that when people talk to you, are a lot of people watching the movie for the first time coming out on tour? I was just kind of curious, like
there's like half the people are all never seen the movie before. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Everywhere I've been, most people are new.
That's crazy.
And we're coming on 20 years next year, right?
20 years next year. And that was one of the big things, is like getting back out there. During the pandemic, I realized, man, we're so lucky to just have people excited to come see a movie. And it's just kind of, the events just kind of started happening. And then people are like, oh, they're so excited they want to do this. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm so lucky to just be out there and do it. And so it's been an interesting way to, like, some of the places showing Miracle Valley first, and then they've never seen the room, so they're like, oh, okay. And then they go see the room, and then they start quoting Miracle Valley to the room. And I was like, this is pretty funny. Yeah, I know it's just a good way to bring people in to see it. But yeah, so many new people.
It's got to be such a weird experience, like going to the theater and seeing the room for the first time, like.
And people are throwing spoons and yelling, "Go, go, go!"
Just shouting at It has to be.
I don't remember the first time I saw it. Now that you mention it, I probably watched it a DVD.
I definitely saw it in high school because it was something that, like I'm sure a lot of people where friends are passing the movie around and showing it to each other. So I remember distinctly watching.
Was it about 2010? When it kind of exploded?
Yeah, it was about 2010, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember reading I think it was like an Entertainment Weekly article.
Yeah, that's what it was, 2008. Yeah. 2008.
Okay, yeah, so it was like they talked to like Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, what do you guys think about that? Like the shark thing, right? We do release that trailer, people like jump all over it, they're all about it. What do you think about like making that movie versus going on trying to make things that you like really want to challenge and grow? And that's the thing, a lot of times not every movie you're going to make or going to do is going to be good. It's going to be people that connects with people. Mm-hmm. But you're trying and you're pursuing these things that like fulfill like what you're trying to do versus kind of going through and doing something like that shark. I mean, I would be all down if it was fun. Like doing something with Rick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if like we played valet drivers and stupid stuff, I would work with Rick 24/7 because anytime we're working together, we have a blast.
Yeah,
and I think that is the biggest thing, because if you make a movie, you can have everybody in the world in it and all these actors, and people don't care. Like you just don't know what people are going to connect to. But if you have a great time doing it, you make friends, you make good experiences, then it's worth it. So for me to kind of go through like the shark thing and just kind of try to make something so bad it's good, to me that's not something that I really see as
it's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like even if you try to recreate it,
you're never going to get what the room is. And that's what I think with Best Friends. It was like trying to do something serious, but the issue is that Tommy still kind of knows now that people think he's funny, or so he's going to try to push that to try to go for that. In the beginning, he had no idea what he was,
which is what makes the room work.
That's what I'm saying. So if you're never going to be able to top that.
Yeah.
I mean, nor should you want to. But yeah, seeing all that like attention, how much people love and want it, it's just,
Well, I think people want the idea more than they want anything.
They do. Yeah. There you go. That's what I've learned, is that they want like bite-size things. They want to like.
we've had lots of conversations about this idea of like trying to intentionally capture that idea of so bad it's good kind of thing, and how it
has to just sort of happen.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with fans too. Like I'm the biggest Breaking Bad fan. I have not watched Better Call Saul.
Really?
And to me, like there you go. You just can't rely that people are just going to always watch something just because you do it. So that's why it's really important to be pushing yourself and making things that are going to define you. Mm-hmm. And even if they're not, at least you're trying. You're heading that direction.
See, I think Better Call Saul is actually
better.
That's what I feel like they captured what they wanted to do. And we're recording this the day before the series finale.
Yeah.
Is it the series finale?
Tomorrow night, yeah.
See, I did the same thing with Breaking Bad. I never watched Breaking Bad, and then I watched it like 6 months after the series finale.
I feel like these last few episodes they're working to connect the dots, and I think it's not as successful. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem with these things that people expect. Because I think that helped with Better Call Saul. Just like people were expecting, like, oh, we're going to get this backstory, and that's any prequel, I guess. We're going to get this backstory, but then you have the room to breathe and to do your own thing.
Yeah, and that's what it did. It became its own thing. At one point, it's characters that you're familiar with, but everything else is like totally different for a lot of it.
And I think that's what Tommy would be trying to capture with this big shark is, oh, remember the guys from The Room?
Yeah.
Remember how funny The Room was? Or bad The Room was, whatever.
But see, I noticed that, like with Best Friends, that people still appreciate it in a different way. They were almost sort of mystified that it was decent. But they're like, oh, that's actually, if you think about it, it was actually well done. But they don't want to go that direction. They want to stay here where it's comfortable, where you laugh and throw stuff. And it's like all of a sudden, like, oh, some of these scenes are kind of working, or it's shot well, or it's kind of intriguing or artsy.
Yeah,
they're not going to want to flock to see that. You know
yeah, I mean, it's just what you never know what's going to happen. But I mean, you're making a movie, but you're playing to the strengths of what Tommy does.
Definitely, and that's all you can try to do.
But where The Room was like, it was just the worst casting imaginable for himself.
Yeah, and that's what was so beautiful is he held all the cards and didn't see it.
Yeah, and I think also the second that the awareness kicks in, even if it's denial,
it's not funny, because then I see him like being the circus animal, like
right.
haha, and smashing stuff. And it's like that's not really funny.
Oh, I mean, when I met him, I did an interview with him like 7 years ago.
Oh, when he came to Austin?
No, it was in. I went to LA.
Oh, for the Fathom thing.
Yeah, for the Riff Tracks thing, and it was.
I remember that.
He was on.
And
that's the thing and when he went off, like when he was off, he was great.
Yeah.
But he was on and combative and oh, you're trying to find out where I live and all this other stuff. But as soon as it came off, we're talking like normal people.
Yeah, that's where you got to get past all that stuff.
I mean, he walks into my friend's apartment and there's a dog and he says, "Hi, doggy." Like, I mean, it's bonkers. It was a weird thing to see. Mm-hmm. But, he was, defensive about The Room. Like, man, I'm trying to talk. Like, I'm saying, hey, this is, because that was, at the time, the biggest audience it would have ever had.
Totally.
Because it was playing simultaneously across the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, he was more interested in the money that it made elsewhere. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how that happens to some people. And I can't necessarily fault him for it because, he sees what works and runs toward it. But
there's all like, I totally get that. Having made a movie, know myself, you're gonna try to find the best home for it. If people are flocking to it, let them do it. But he just has a way of doing things his way, and it could be always a little different.
It is. It's tough to. I would imagine it's tough for someone like him, who had aspirations of being
Marlon Brando.
Yeah, and there we go, Tennessee Williams, and then for it to become a comedy, but then to embrace it, and then to never quite be able to capture that magic again.
Well, that's the biggest thing is you cannot be moving backwards as a musician or filmmaker or writer. You can't I think in some ways what Tommy did is just as great as what Tennessee Williams did.
Right.
It's entertainment. It's just a different form of entertainment. It gets people excited in the same way.
Yeah.
So, like, move forward, like, you got to have something to say. And that's what I'm saying about the shark stuff. I think it's living in that bad movie world that is just not, it doesn't have anything new to say. And that's why, for me, like, I try to tackle subjects that I'm really interested in, that I've read in, like cults or UFOs, and say, what do I want to bring to whatever this is? And how can I do it in a fresh and fun way?
Yeah.
And so that's part of the fun, is just surprising your audience with what you're interested in and what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make a bad movie on purpose. It just has to happen.
It just has to happen, yeah.
And I mean, and you know, frankly, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
It's just they're not as like fun to watch, or they don't get the hype or the, you know.
Well, I mean, there's bad movies that are just incompetent. Then there's bad movies that are clearly passionate, that went off the rails, and I think that's where The Room falls. You know, there's just one giant thing, and it's Tommy.
Yeah.
That really just skews the whole axis of the thing.
Totally.
But yeah, trying to recapture it is, because like I watched Neighbors, a little bit of it. It's, I don't know wherever it lives now. It was on Hulu. He tried to get me to sell it to a program, my TV, when I worked for TV, local TV, tried to get me to sell it to.
That was like 2015, yeah.
Yeah, that's when it was. Yeah, it's just an interesting. People still want that because they feel like they want that. They want to recapture what they felt with The Room.
Yeah, so they're trying, and then it's quickly like it's really a hard spot to be in.
Yeah. Well, I think that about does it. We'll wrap this up. Thanks again, Greg. Where can people find where you're touring for Best Friend? For Miracle Valley. Man, we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. So how can they find out where
they can get a time machine? They can go back to 2020.
You can buy Best Friends on Blu-ray now.
Yeah, Lionsgate put it out, so it's on streaming. Best Friends on streaming, and then Miracle Valley will be out streaming. It'll be on Tubi first.
That's awesome.
September.
And that's really underrated. I think
it's a free service, right?
Yeah. Tubi and like the Weird Al movies coming out on Roku. Like it's a great place for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got Tubi for Miracle Valley. It's also available on Blu-ray, which is I'll be putting on my Facebook page and Instagram and all that. And then I'll be doing shows on and off until November. I think until Halloween's done. And
then when you starting your next project?
Probably January.
Nice.
Very nice.
Cool. Well, Greg.
This time it'll only be one, like just me and another camera guy, just to make sure that we'll do it that way this time.
No, I don't think I'm just shocked that people still do that. I mean, frankly,
we did that on Best Friends. We had like 3 people.
Yeah, no, that's why I talked about it. Like,
yeah.
And I didn't realize. I mean, it's nothing speaking to the quality, just the idea that. I thought it'd be, because you shot Best Friends in L.A. I thought it'd be easier to get a crew in L.A.
Yeah, no, but it Best Friends was just sort of like, we had a really good team of small, but it was a team that was so committed. Sometimes you have a couple good people make up for 10 people.
Yeah.
Oh,
if they're like, if they want it. So, but I learned that you get burnt out over time, and then you have less, focus on some of the other things. So I think definitely a good crew and delegating responsibility is really helpful. But I think that's what's so great about where I'd be filming in El Paso is we have so much like commitment there from people that just want to be part of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that'll really help. We already did all the location scouting, and I did some location scouting in Iceland for some of the locations. So everything's lined up, ready to go.
Nice. Looking forward to it. Greg Sestero, thanks again for joining us for
Anytime.
The 9th time or whatever it is.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week. Next week.